A young black girl steps into a sleek, polished bank, her clothes neat and her posture steady, carrying the quiet confidence of someone ready to take control of her own future. But from the moment she crosses the threshold, the air shifts, the subtle glances, the cold distance, the invisible barriers that seem to close in around her, turning what should be a simple transaction into a battleground. Every look she meets holds a question she's been asked before. Every gesture feels like a silent verdict passed, without words. This isn't just a story about money or banks. It's a story about dignity, power, and the invisible walls built by prejudice. And somewhere deep beneath the surface lies a truth so powerful it will turn the entire narrative upside down, challenging everything you thought you knew. If you want to see how this unfolds, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me where you're watching from and what part of the story moves you most. Your voice matters as we explore a journey through injustice and the fight for respect. Maya steps inside the bank lobby, blinking as the bright, sterile light hits her eyes and reflects off the polished marble floor. The hush feels clinical, layered with the mechanical hum of air conditioning that seems to suck warmth and comfort from the air. She slows just inside the door, adjusting the slim clutch against her ribs with fingers that have already gone clammy despite her best efforts to remain calm. She tries to ignore the faint squeak of her shoes on the polished tile. Everything about the space seems designed to magnify small insecurities. Every sound bounces, every movement is exposed. She draws in a steadying breath and resumes walking with deliberate slowness, hoping her composure doesn't crack. She knows she looks young, too young maybe, but she dressed carefully this morning, choosing her best blouse and pressing it until the seams were razor sharp, smoothing the dark pants she'd reserved for church or school ceremonies. She brushed her hair back into a low ponytail so tight it made her temples throb slightly, determined that not one stray hair would suggest carelessness. Her mother had said she looked professional, like a young woman who knew what she was doing. She'd held on to those words all the way here. She's trying to hold on to them now. She glances around the room quickly, scanning for where she's supposed to go. Customers sit on a neat line of padded chairs along the wall, some peering at their phones, others filling out forms with a faintly grim resolve of bureaucracy. In the glass-fronted cubicles, business types in expensive suits speak in low, controlled tones with loan officers in matching navy blue uniforms. No one here is laughing. No one looks relaxed. Maya feels the pressure tighten around her ribs, squeezing her breath. She edges closer to the short queue for the tellers, stepping into line behind a man in an immaculate gray suit who doesn't even glance at her. She tries not to stare at the way he rests his briefcase against his polished shoes, calm and entitled. The line moves quickly, efficiently. Each interaction ends with a nod or a handshake or a slip of paper neatly tucked away. She watches the bank employees' well-practiced smiles, the low, polite voices, the sense of mutual understanding. They seem to speak a shared language she doesn't know. Her pulse skitters uncomfortably. She glances down at her bank card in her palm, willing it to lend her authority. She's here for a simple withdrawal. Nothing complicated. She rehearsed the words last night, practiced saying them aloud. She knows what to do. It's hers, her money, her responsibility. She forces herself to lift her chin slightly. The man ahead of her leaves with a satisfied nod. It's her turn. She moves forward, clutching the card and her slim purse so tightly her fingers ache. She stops the counter and looks up. Carla sits perched behind the gleaming surface, her posture relaxed in a way that says she owns the space. The counter is spotless, organized with military precision. Pens chained neatly to little stands, forms in crisp piles, a small plaque with her name. Carla doesn't greet her. She doesn't even look up immediately. She's typing slowly, deliberately, the nails of one hand tapping out a slow, steady rhythm on the keys. The click of the keys seems to echo, stretching the moment unbearably. Maya stands there, frozen, the words she practiced caught behind her teeth. She wets her lips nervously, hoping Carla will acknowledge her so she can finally speak. The seconds crawl. Finally, with a long, deliberate motion, Carla lifts her gaze. It rises from Maya's shoes, scuffed at the toe despite her efforts to clean them. Then over the pressed pants, the crisp blouse, the careful ponytail that suddenly feels juvenile instead of professional. Carla's mouth doesn't move except for a twitch at the corner, a micro-expression of disdain she doesn't bother to hide. Her gaze settles on Maya's face. Cold, measuring, unimpressed. She doesn't ask what Maya needs. She doesn't nod encouragingly. She simply stares, exhaling a tiny, dismissive sigh through her nose. Maya's chest tightens. She feels the heat rise in her face. She wills herself not to fidget, to keep her grip on her card steady despite the tremor in her fingers. Carla notices the shaking, her eyes dipping for the briefest second, noting it the way someone notes an unflattering stain. Then back to Maya's face. The silence stretches. Maya forces a tiny, polite cough to clear her throat, but Carla doesn't respond beyond the narrowing of her eyes, a subtle hardening of her jaw that says she's waiting, but not inviting. Maya's heart pounds. Her shoulders slump a fraction before she remembers to square them again, drawing herself up by sheer force of will. The lobby feels even colder now. The muted murmur of other customers becomes a taunting soundtrack, proof of how easily other people handle this. She can't even say hello without her voice failing. Carla leans back an inch, a movement of relaxed superiority, arms folding just slightly as if she's settling in to watch Maya struggle. The stare is clinical, assessing, and devoid of any pretense of courtesy. It's clear she has all the time in the world to make Maya wait, to make her squirm. Maya wants to flee, to turn on her heel and march out the way she came, but her feet stay rooted, locked by equal parts fear and pride. She's here to do this. She has to do this. Her mother's words echo somewhere behind the ringing in her ears. Be strong, be polite, be firm. But Carla's presence seems to smother those words, to drain them of power. Maya's mouth opens again. No words come out. Her tongue feels heavy, her lips numb. Carla leans forward, resting her elbows on the counter, eyes dropping to the papers she's begun to shuffle. It's a deliberate show. The rustle of thick stock forms like dry leaves crushed underfoot, the sound magnified in the cold, sterile quiet of the space. She spreads the papers out unnecessarily wide, arranging them in obsessive straight lines, tapping them against the surface with methodical precision. Each tap is a subtle reminder that she's choosing this pace, that she controls this interaction. Maya watches helplessly, unable to interrupt, her mouth opening slightly only to close again. The words she practiced last night are back, whispering somewhere deep in her brain, but they won't rise to the surface. She can't even clear her throat now, not with Carla's head so studiously bent over the documents, pretending Maya isn't even there. The fluorescent lights overhead buzz faintly, casting a cold white glow over Carla's hair, making the blonde strands look like polished wire. The plastic badge on Carla's blouse catches the light too, gleaming with authority, an official imprimatur of power. It's a small, humiliating detail, but Maya's eyes can't help fixating on it, wishing her own name had that weight behind it, wishing she could hold up like a shield against this silence. A family with 2 small kids joins the line behind Maya, their hushed chatter an unwelcome soundtrack to her isolation. She hears the mother explaining something patiently about savings accounts and feels a sharp stab of envy, an almost childish longing for someone to be there explaining for her. But no one is. She's supposed to be proving she doesn't need that. Carla flips another paper over, reading it with exaggerated care. The paper is blank on the back. Maya's heart sinks. She knows now that this isn't disorganization or busyness. It's theater, deliberate, a performance for whoever might be watching. Her fingers twitch around the card. She wants to set it down on the counter with a firm slap, demand Carla look at her, acknowledge her. But her arm feels heavy, disobedient. Her shoulders sag a millimeter, so small it wouldn't register on anyone else's face. But she knows Carla sees it. Carla's nostrils flare ever so slightly, the only sign of satisfaction she allows herself before she resumes her slow, pointless sorting. The mother behind Maya gently shushes one of the kids, the sound impossibly gentle compared to the hard silence surrounding the teller counter. Maya wants to turn around and disappear into that family, be small enough to hide behind them. But she can't. She's alone. She's supposed to be grown up. The counter feels like a border crossing, a customs gate. Carla holds all the power behind it. When Carla finally stops shuffling, she places the stack of papers in a precise pile to her left. She reaches out slowly, with the deliberate grace of someone extending an olive branch she has no intention of letting go. She picks up a slim, glossy brochure from the holder on the counter's edge. It's bright green and orange, practically glowing in the sterile light. In big, friendly letters, it reads Smart Teen Savings. Start building your future. The smiling stock photo kids on the cover look a little too perfect, their braces gleaming in a forced grin. Carla turns it over in her hand, pretending to inspect it with the same grave attention she'd given the forms before. Then she places it on the counter in front of Maya, not toward her, in front of her, like marking territory. Maya stares at it, heart dropping. The insult is carefully wrapped in the language of customer service. It's so polite, so helpful, so undeniably humiliating. Her cheeks burn, and she fights to keep her face blank, to avoid showing the collapse of the tiny bit of confidence she'd managed to shore up. She doesn't move to pick up the brochure. She doesn't dare. Carla rests her fingers on the edge of the counter, tapping once, twice, in another silent beat of power. Her eyes finally lift, locking with Maya's for a second, so brief it barely counts. There's no welcome there, no curiosity, just confirmation. Carla has made her judgment. Maya is not a real customer. She's a child, a problem, an annoyance to be redirected or ignored until she goes away. The brochure sits there, an accusation in bright color, demanding she admit she doesn't belong at the adult counter. Maya's fingers tighten around her clutch until the faux leather creaks audibly. She feels the sweat gathering at the base of her hairline, the collar of her blouse suddenly too tight. She wants to rip it open. She wants to bolt for the door. She wants to scream. Instead, she breathes in through her nose, the sound shaky, her chest rising unevenly. She doesn't reach for the brochure. She can't, because touching it feels like surrender. She tries to swallow, but her throat is bone dry. Carla seems content to wait. The silence grows. The family behind her is hushed now too, sensing the tension. The mother rests a reassuring hand on her child's shoulder, eyes averted. Even they know this moment isn't for them to intrude on. It belongs to Carla and Maya alone. A small battle of wills, hopelessly uneven. The fluorescent lighting gleams off the plastic coating of the brochure, reflecting into Maya's eyes until she has to blink. The tears threaten to well up again, but she clamps them down. She refuses to let them fall. She refuses to let Carla see her cry. Her breathing is all wrong now. She can't find a rhythm. The polished floor feels like it's tilting beneath her shoes. But she doesn't move. She can't. Carla's fingers resume their slow tap on the counter. Patient. Inevitable. She's not going to speak first. She's not going to invite Maya to explain herself. Maya knows that now. This is the test. The line behind her shuffles restless, the weight of their stares adding another layer to the humiliation. Carla's fingers wrap around her pen, the cheap plastic clicking softly with each rotation. The movement is deliberate, unhurried, and wholly dismissive. The pen spins once, twice, 3 times before she balances it idly between 2 fingers and flicks it back and forth. Her gaze, hooded and indifferent, doesn't leave Maya's face. Maya's skin prickles under that stare, like standing under a magnifying glass that's starting to burn. She tries to steady her breathing, but it only draws more attention to the way her chest rises and falls in uneven jerks. The shame is hot in her throat. Carla cocks her head slightly, as though seeing something fascinating and grotesque at once, eyes narrowing just a fraction as they travel again from Maya's perfectly ironed collar to the trembling fingers wrapped too tightly around her clutch. There's no confusion in that gaze, no polite curiosity, only judgment that's already been passed. Maya feels the urge to smooth her hair back to check if it's come loose, if she's let something slip, but she doesn't dare. She doesn't want to give Carla the satisfaction of seeing her flinch. but she knows Carla sees it anyway. The teller's lip curls in the faintest approximation of amusement, a private joke she's not generous enough to share. She twirls the pen again, slower now, letting the motion draw the eye to her relaxed posture behind the glass barrier. Her entire body language says she has nothing better to do than toy with this sad little interruption at her counter. Maya swallows hard, her throat clicking, the sound painfully loud in her head. She can hear the shuffle of people behind her, the way the mother with kids has pulled them closer, hushing them as if to keep them from witnessing the embarrassment. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, cold and pitiless, throwing harsh shadows under Carla's sharp cheekbones. When Carla finally shifts, she doesn't look at Maya. Instead, she glances sideways to the teller station just to her left, where a younger employee with nervous eyes is pretending to work on her screen. Carla's pen stops spinning. She taps it once on the counter. The sound is small but precise. The other teller glances up, startled, and Carla tilts her head even further, her hair falling away from one ear in a smooth arc. Her lips part just enough to speak, but her voice is pitched so low it doesn't carry to Maya clearly. It doesn't have to. The conspiratorial hush is intentional. Carla lets out a soft, breathy huff that could be a laugh, but is too cruel to be called one. She raises one brow meaningfully, her gaze cutting briefly back to Maya before returning to her coworker. The other teller's eyes widen a fraction, then dart away, pretending not to react, but a blush rises on her cheeks, betraying that she heard, that she understood. Maya doesn't know the words, but she knows the meaning. She feels it in her bones. Her hands start to shake harder now, betraying her completely. She tries to tighten her grip, to hold herself steady, but it's no use. Her fingers flex and curl around the slim clutch like claws trying to dig into safety that isn't there. Carla's crooked smirk is back, small but razor sharp, a subtle curl of disdain she doesn't bother to hide. She knows Maya is watching. She wants her to see it. It's an invitation to be humiliated. Maya's heart slams in her chest, a dull panic beating behind her ribs. Her mouth is dry. She tries to swallow again, but it sticks halfway, catching painfully. She knows she should speak. She knows she should demand to be helped. Remind Carla that she's a customer with as much right to stand here as anyone else. But her voice is gone. The words she practiced last night are gone. In their place is a roaring in her ears, an ugly mix of rage and helplessness and shame. Carla leans closer to the divider between her and her coworker, murmuring another line too quiet to hear, but clear in intent. Her shoulders shift, relaxed, conspiratorial. The other teller forces a tight-lipped smile, eyes darting anywhere but at Maya. The silence stretches. The lobby seems to lean in, eavesdropping on this silent cruelty. Maya's vision blurs for an instant. She blinks hard, furious at the wetness gathering at the corners of her eyes. She will not cry. She bites her lip until she tastes copper, forcing the tears back with physical pain. Carla's eyes flick back, catching that moment. The smirk widens by a hair. She flicks the pen one last time before setting it down with deliberate finality on the counter. The sharp plastic clack is a period at the end of an unspoken sentence. She doesn't need words. Maya hears them all the same. You don't belong here. You don't matter. You are something to be mocked, something to share a laugh about when you finally scurry away. The queue behind Maya grows restless, the shifting of feet and quiet coughs filling the silence that Carla refuses to break. No one intervenes. No one offers her an escape. She is frozen in place, humiliated under fluorescent lights that seem to have been designed to expose every flaw. She tries to speak again. Nothing. Her tongue is thick. Carla makes no attempt to hide her disdain, rolling the edges of the papers between her fingers, bending them slightly so that creases form where there were none before. Maya winces inwardly at the sight of the forms she had flattened so carefully that morning, now marred with careless wrinkles. Carla's eyes remain half-lidded, her expression the cold, impassive mask of someone who's decided the other person doesn't warrant even the basic courtesy of eye contact. She flips the papers over once, twice, performing an inspection, so absurdly casual It can't be mistaken for genuine review. It's a performance, the laziest possible imitation of diligence, transparent in its contempt. The lobby remains hushed but not unaware. A mother behind Maya gives a small, uncertain cough to cover the sound of her child's question, a nervous hush falling over the line as the spectacle plays out. Maya feels her breath coming faster, shallower, each inhale scraping the back of her throat. She tries to speak, to ask politely for her papers back, but her voice fails her. Her mouth opens and closes silently. Carla doesn't look at her. Instead, she holds the papers up in front of her face, blocking Maya's view of her eyes entirely, like a physical barrier meant to erase her from the room. The message is clear. I don't have to see you. You're not worth seeing. Carla slowly tilts her head, scanning the papers from angles that make no sense, a small smirk playing around the edges of her lips, as if she's enjoying some private joke. Maya feels her fingers twitch, wanting to snatch the papers back to reclaim them, but she can't move. She is pinned by the weight of Carla's performance, by the silent expectation of the watching line behind her. Carla lets out a breathy, exaggerated sigh, loud enough to draw attention from the surrounding customers, who shift uncomfortably, their eyes darting toward the counter before quickly flicking away. She holds the papers suspended for a moment longer, making Maya wait, letting the seconds stretch into an eternity of humiliating stillness. Finally, with a casual flick of her wrist, Carla releases them. They slide off the edge of the counter, fluttering once before landing on the floor with a sound that seems impossibly loud in the quiet space. Maya's heart stops. She stares at them for a fraction of a second, willing herself not to react, hoping that maybe Carla will lean forward, pretend it was an accident, retrieve them for her. But Carla doesn't move. She leans back in her chair instead, crossing her arms in a posture of complete disinterest. Her eyes finally meet Maya's again, flat and unblinking, daring her to protest. Maya feels her knees tremble as she bends down, clutch slipping against her sweaty palm, knees popping audibly in the silence. Her hair falls forward, obscuring her face, a thin curtain that does nothing to hide the heat rising in her cheeks. She snatches the papers off the floor with shaking fingers, trying to straighten them even as her palms dampen the crumpled edges further. She can feel Carla's gaze on her scalp, a weight pressing her lower with every second. The fluorescent lighting above casts harsh, unflattering shadows, highlighting the sweat collecting at Maya's temples. She's sure everyone can see her now, crouched on the floor like she dropped something clumsy and childish. She wants to melt into the tile. She wants the earth to open up and swallow her whole. She rises slowly, painfully aware of how many eyes are on her, the quiet shuffling behind her that signals the other customers are watching, pretending not to, but watching all the same. As she straightens, she forces herself not to look at them, to keep her eyes on Carla. But that proves worse. Carla's expression is a portrait of studied impatience, lips pursed, fingers tapping now with louder, more rhythmic force against the counter's edge. The sound is a drumbeat of accusation. Carla finally exhales again, a sharper, more pointed sound, like the hiss of a punctured tire. Her eyes sweep the lobby in a deliberate arc, taking in the onlookers, making sure they see this, making sure they understand her dominance in this small, cruel theater. She's not just humiliating Maya in private. She's putting on a show. Maya's fingers flex around her papers, trying to smooth them against her clutch. But the edges are ruined now, creased and warped, a tangible mark of the disrespect she's just been forced to accept. She holds them out again, arms trembling, the offer a silent plea. Carla doesn't reach for them immediately. She leans back further in her chair, fingers drumming, tilting her head just so, looking Maya up and down with glacial contempt. The seconds crawl by. Maya feels her shoulders sag, defeated. She wants to say something, anything, to stop this, to defend herself, to demand the respect she knows she deserves. But she's mute, paralyzed. She doesn't trust her voice not to crack. She doesn't trust herself not to cry. Carla's lips curl in that small, poisonous smile that isn't a smile at all, just a baring of teeth to show she's won. Then, finally, she lifts one perfectly manicured hand, palm out, in a lazy, unbothered request for the papers back. Her crisp blouse doesn't wrinkle despite the lean, She's too practiced for that, but the lines of her body sharpen, signaling authority, control. She doesn't look at Maya when she moves, but everyone else does. The customers in line go quiet, the shuffle of feet halting as attention focuses on the new tableau. Carla's movements are fluid, theatrical, and Maya realizes too late that she's being made into a spectacle. The teller's gaze flicks across the lobby and settles on the uniformed security guard stationed by the glass doors. Her fingers give the subtlest curl, an imperious crook of one nail, beckoning him forward. The guard, trained to respond without question, straightens and begins moving toward the counter. His shoes strike the floor in heavy, deliberate steps that echo against the sterile walls. Maya feels her stomach drop as she hears it, each step a countdown she can't stop. She wants to protest, to wave him off, to shout that there's no need, but her throat closes around the words. The guard is older, broad-shouldered, with a belt weighed down by keys and radio. He doesn't look at Maya with malice. He barely looks at her at all. He's just following protocol. Carla's protocol. The power dynamic is unmistakable. Carla doesn't bother to explain. She doesn't offer context or reason. She simply waits, chin lifted high in regal command, her lips pressed into a tight, unreadable line that only sharpens the lines around her mouth. She taps one manicured nail against the counter once, twice, a cold metronome that sets the pace of Maya's panic. When the guard arrives at her side, Carla finally straightens her back, crossing her arms. The smile she wears is brittle and icy, stretched too tight across her face, her eyes flat and unfeeling. She doesn't speak to Maya. She doesn't acknowledge her presence at all. Instead, she turns her head just enough to address the guard, voice pitched too low for Maya to hear. But she doesn't have to hear the words. The message is obvious. The security guard nods once, the briefest professional acknowledgement, and angles himself just slightly closer to Maya. His stance is casual but firm, an unmistakable wall. Maya's heart lurches, a cold sweat breaking out at the base of her spine. She knows what this looks like. She knows what Carla is making it look like. The murmur from the line behind her grows louder, ripples of confusion and discomfort spreading through the small audience that can't help but watch. A man in business attire clears his throat loudly, shifting uncomfortably. A woman with her arms crossed glances at Maya with something like pity, or is it suspicion? Maya can't tell anymore. She feels like she's shrinking under their collective gaze, heat flooding her face until her vision swims. She tightens her grip on her clutch so hard the edges dig painfully into her palm. Carla turns back to her workstation with deliberate calm, fingers skimming across the keyboard without typing anything. She pretends to read something on the screen, dismissing Maya completely. It's the final insult, the act of disinterest while the guard looms over her, while Maya's humiliation is on display for everyone to see. She has no idea what Carla told him. Maybe nothing at all. Maybe just enough to make him come stand here, to act as silent reinforcement, a threat she doesn't have to voice. The guard doesn't say anything either. He simply stands there, close enough that Maya can see the texture of his uniform shirt, smell the faint scent of starch and aftershave. He doesn't touch her. He doesn't have to. His presence is enough. Carla's chin lifts a fraction higher, her mouth curling just barely at one corner in satisfaction. She has established the hierarchy. She has made it clear to everyone in the lobby who holds authority here, and who is the problem that needs managing. Maya can feel the eyes on her back, the restless silence behind her that seems to push her forward, demanding she do something to resolve this tension she never asked for. But she can't move. She's pinned in place by the heavy, oppressive certainty that any movement will be interpreted as guilt, as proof that the guard is necessary. She tries to speak, to say anything at all, an explanation, a protest, even an apology she doesn't owe, but her lips tremble instead. No sound emerges. The tears she's been fighting so hard to hold back sting her eyes, threatening to spill over. She blinks furiously, refusing to let them fall, because she knows if she cries here, if she breaks here, Carla will win completely. The guard shifts minutely, feet braced, eyes scanning the lobby with bored professionalism. He's not here for her. Not really. He's here because Carla snapped her fingers. That's all it took. Maya's stomach twists painfully. She feels exposed in a way she's never felt before, as though she's been stripped of every protective layer she had. She tries to adjust the papers in her grip, but they're a mess now, bent and smudged with her own sweaty fingerprints. The damage is irreversible, a perfect mirror of her dignity. Carla's fingers resume their tapping, the sound slicing through Maya's ears like a knife. The line behind her has slowed to a crawl as people rubberneck, pretending not to stare while failing utterly. No one says anything. Her fingers clench tighter on the worn leather clutch, nails digging into the smooth surface as if anchoring her to reality. The scent of stale coffee from the nearby kiosk and the faint perfume of the woman ahead mingle with the antiseptic coolness of the bank, making her dizzy. Carla's lips tighten into a thin, unyielding line as she turns toward the bank's desktop phone, its plastic buttons glistening under the harsh light. Without a hint of hesitation or concern, she lifts the receiver with deliberate care, pressing it firmly against her ear. The clicking of the buttons echoes sharply, a rhythmic code that underscores the tension in the room. Her eyes never waver for Maya, locked in a silent, cold challenge. It's a show of power. Carla is calling in backup, issuing an unspoken verdict. Maya's throat tightens. She wants to protest, to say that she belongs here, that this is her account, that she is not a problem to be removed. But the sound of the buttons, the unwavering gaze of Carla, the stony expression on the security guard's face, each element combines to suffocate her voice before it can emerge. Her heartbeat pounds erratically, reverberating in her ears as adrenaline floods her veins. Her cheeks burn hotter now, the heat crawling up her neck, threatening to spill over into tears she can't afford to shed. She swallows hard, blinking rapidly to clear the wetness clouding her vision. The space between them stretches out, the seconds thick and heavy, weighted with anticipation of what will come next. Behind her, the line of customers watches in silence, a mixture of curiosity and discomfort rippling through their ranks. Some shift their weight nervously, others glance away, unwilling to witness the humiliation but unable to look elsewhere. The children in the family near the door cling tightly to their mother's hands, wide-eyed and silent, absorbing the tension with a gravity that belies their age. Carla's finger taps the phone again in a staccato rhythm, impatient and precise, as if counting down to a moment Maya dreads but cannot control. The waiting feels endless. The cold plastic of the receiver presses hard against Carla's ear, a barrier between the world and the growing storm behind her eyes. Finally, she lowers the handset, her lips pressed into a thin line that curves downward ever so slightly, signaling the end of the call. Without a word, she straightens and leans forward once more, resting both hands flat on the counter, fingers spread wide like claws asserting dominion. Her voice, when it comes, is low and clipped, carried just loud enough for Maya to hear over the quiet rustling of papers and whispered breaths. It isn't a question. It isn't a request. It's a command. Carla gestures subtly toward the exit, her eyes flashing with a cold fire that leaves no room for argument. Maya feels as though the floor beneath her has shifted, the ground slipping away from under her feet. Her mouth opens in shock, her throat closing around the words she wanted to speak. Instead, she bites her lip, fighting to steady herself against the crushing wave of disbelief and betrayal. The security guard steps forward at Carla's nod, moving with deliberate calm but unmistakable purpose. His gaze flicks to Maya briefly, unreadable but firm. The distance between them shrinks with each measured step. Maya's heart pounds so loudly she fears it will betray her. She wants to retreat, to escape the gathering storm that Carla has summoned around her. But her legs feel rooted, frozen in place by a mixture of fear and determination. She knows she has done nothing wrong. This is her money, her account, her right. But that knowledge feels fragile, powerless, a whisper against the roaring tide of authority pressing down on her. Around them, the lobby is silent except for the faint clicking of heels and the steady rustle of pages being turned elsewhere. Yet here in this space, the silence is deafening. The security guard stands beside Carla, an immovable barrier between Maya and the teller's counter. Carla's eyes meet Maya's once more, hard and unyielding, daring her to challenge the verdict. Carla pauses, her hand frozen in midair as the gravity of what's just happened dawns on her. The badge bears the unmistakable logo of the bank's corporate franchise, a mark of authority that commands respect and silence. But it's the embossed title that turns Carla's expression from cold calculation to shocked disbelief. The name inscribed there is the same as Maya's, followed by a designation that carries weight beyond the teller's comprehension: branch owner and president. Carla's eyes dart up from the badge, flicking back and forth between the gleaming gold plate and Maya's face, who stands stunned but now steady, as if drawing strength from the silent reveal. The quiet rustling of papers around them is swallowed by a sudden hush that sweeps across the lobby like a wave, halting whispers and tentative movements in their tracks. Other customers who had been exchanging uneasy glances now fix their eyes on the badge, piecing together its significance. Carla's fingers tremble slightly as she lifts the ID back onto the counter with less confidence than before, the badge no longer a shield but a burden. Her lips pressed together tightly, the smug smile wiped clean, replaced by a flicker of vulnerability she cannot hide. Maya's pulse quickens, but her posture straightens. The weight of humiliation is suddenly matched by the quiet power that emanates from the simple golden badge. The line behind her shifts uneasily, the previous atmosphere of judgment giving way to confusion and curiosity. The security guard steps back slightly, his expression unreadable, sensing a shift in authority he had not anticipated. Carla's gaze flickers briefly to the manager's office door, the place where she could have summoned backup at will, and then back to Maya's face. Her carefully constructed facade cracks ever so slightly. The subtle tremble in her hands as she sets the badge down is enough for those watching to sense the change. No longer the cold, unyielding gatekeeper, Carla looks momentarily unsure, her posture softening as the unspoken truth settles around them. Maya remains silent, letting the silence speak for her. She knows this moment is her chance, the silent reveal cutting through the layers of cruelty and dismissal she has endured. The other tellers glance at one another, their own expressions flickering with a mix of surprise and a dawning respect. A woman nearby inhales sharply, clutching a purse as if steadying herself. A man shifts his stance, folding his arms with a new attitude. The family with children stiffens, the mother casting a cautious but approving glance toward Maya. The tension that had so heavily blanketed the lobby begins to unravel, replaced by a charged expectancy. Carla's eyes lock with Maya's, and for a heartbeat, the teller's gaze loses its icy hardness, replaced by a grudging acknowledgement. Maya doesn't smile. She doesn't need to. The silent power of the badge, combined with her steady presence, speaks volumes. Carla's jaw tightens, and with a flick of her head, she signals the security guard to stand down. The guard's shoulders relax imperceptibly, his eyes lingering on Maya's face with a newfound respect before he retreats quietly toward the door. Carla clears her throat softly, straightening her blouse and smoothing her skirt as if trying to regain control of a situation slipping through her fingers. The soft click of the badge, as Carla places it carefully back into her pocket, punctuates the moment, a stark contrast to the harsh sounds of earlier confrontations. Maya's lips part slightly, but no words are needed. The silence between them carries all the weight. The lobby breathes again. People begin to murmur, conversations starting up with a renewed sense of awareness and perhaps shame. Some glance at Carla with questioning eyes, others at Maya with newfound admiration. The stark divide that had defined the moment now blurs into something less clear-cut, less cruel. Carla's expression hardens once more, but it's different now, less of contempt, more of calculation. She's forced to acknowledge a new reality, one where Maya is no longer just a customer to be dismissed, but a person whose presence commands recognition. Maya's chest rises and falls steadily, the raw ache of humiliation tempered by this quiet vindication. The mother near the door glances toward her children, whispering reassurances that barely mask her surprise. The man who earlier had shot Maya a wary look now sits straighter, eyes fixed intently on the counter, as if piecing together the implications. The security guard, who had loomed menacingly moments ago, now stands with arms folded, his posture more cautious, as if recalibrating the situation. Carla's fingers twitch, the calm facade she fought so hard to maintain cracking at the edges. She steps back slightly from the counter, hands trembling as she rubs them against her skirt, the unspoken weight of scrutiny bearing down on her. Her lips pressed together tightly, forming a line that speaks of regret, disbelief, and the sudden awareness of the gravity of her misjudgment. Maya, standing poised and composed despite the storm swirling around her, feels the tide turning. Her heartbeat slows, replaced by a steady rhythm of vindication and quiet strength. The other bank employees exchange glances, their expressions shifting from casual indifference to cautious respect. Some lean forward, eager to witness the fallout of the incident they had only observed from the periphery. A young teller catches Maya's eye briefly, offering a small, tentative nod that feels like a gesture of solidarity. The once hostile atmosphere softens, replaced by a collective realization that the girl before them is far more than what Carla had assumed. Customers begin to whisper names, murmurs of the owner's daughter, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. A wave of recognition sweeps over the room, transforming suspicion into reverence. Carla's gaze flicks nervously toward the bank manager's office door, the place where decisions are made and reputations guarded. Moments later, the door opens, and a sharply dressed woman steps into the lobby, her expression unreadable, but her presence commanding. The room stills instantly, conversations halting as she surveys the scene. Her eyes lock onto Carla first, then move to Maya, and the subtle exchange between them speaks volumes without a word being uttered. The manager's arrival is a silent confirmation of the significance of what has just unfolded. Carla's shoulders slump slightly, the facade crumbling as the weight of accountability settles heavily upon her. Maya meets her mother's gaze across the room, a flicker of pride and reassurance passing between them. The family's legacy, long hidden beneath layers of prejudice and dismissal, is now laid bare in the harsh light of the bank's lobby. Whispers intensify, patrons nudging one another, sharing looks that speak of collective astonishment and reluctant admiration. Carla's eyes dart around, searching for an escape from the mounting pressure. She feels the judgmental weight of dozens of eyes bearing down on her, a silent verdict harsher than any spoken reprimand. The security guard steps aside, his stance relaxed but watchful, signaling the shifting power dynamic. The crowd's mood transforms from one of tension to cautious curiosity, as if witnessing the slow dismantling of a long-held assumption. Maya's posture remains impeccable, the calm center in a storm of changing tides. Her breaths come steady and measured, every inch the poised young woman her mother always believed her to be. The air seems to pulse with new possibility, as if the walls themselves have absorbed the unspoken promise of justice in the room. Carla finally breaks the silence with a forced clearing of her throat, her voice low and strained as she attempts to regain control. But the words fall flat, drowned out by the weight of the unyielding gazes fixed upon her. Maya doesn't respond. She doesn't need to. The silence speaks louder than any declaration. Around them, the whispers swell into murmurs of support, the tide of opinion turning decisively. The badge on the counter gleams in the light, a shining symbol of truth and power that no amount of cruelty could diminish. Carla steps back, her face pale, the realization settling like a shroud. She has lost this battle, not with words, but with the undeniable force of Maya's identity. The bank manager approaches Carla quietly, speaking in a tone that Maya can't hear but feels the finality in. Carla nods stiffly, defeated yet unwilling to meet Maya's gaze again. The crowd begins to disperse slowly, the air clearing as normalcy resumes, but with a new awareness lingering like a shadow. Maya stands tall, her heart lighter, the burden of humiliation lifted by the revelation she never intended but welcomed. She gathers her papers with steady hands, the corners now untouched and pristine. Carla's posture stiffens at the touch, her confident mask wavering for a split second as the manager leans in, her voice low and urgent, words spoken so softly that only Carla can hear. Yet, the weight of that whispered reprimand is palpable, reverberating in the tense air like a verdict passed. Around them, the customers hold their breath, watching the unfolding drama with a mix of curiosity and anticipation. The security guard, who moments ago stood as a silent enforcer beside Carla, shifts uneasily. His presence diminishes, no longer a threat looming over Maya, but a bystander to the changing power dynamic. Carla's eyes flick from the manager's grip to the gathering crowd, searching for allies or escape routes, but finding none. The confidence that had anchored her to her role drains rapidly, replaced by a creeping realization that the rules are no longer in her favor. She steps back, shoulders slumping subtly as the manager tightens her hold, guiding her away from the counter with quiet but firm insistence. The murmurs in the lobby swell into a collective whisper of validation for Maya, the audience sensing the rightness of this moment. The tension that had frozen the room begins to thaw, replaced by a growing sense of relief and hope. The bank employees exchange meaningful glances, the manager's decisive intervention signaling a turning point in how the institution handles prejudice and injustice. Behind the scenes, this moment carries weight far beyond the lobby. It is a statement of accountability, a rejection of the cold dismissal and cruelty that had gone unchecked for too long. Carla's lips press into a thin line, the expression of someone grappling with the consequences of her actions. Her eyes dart nervously to Maya, who stands poised and composed, unwavering in the face of the ordeal. Despite the humiliation she has endured, Maya's quiet strength radiates through the room, a stark contrast to Carla's crumbling facade. As the manager escorts Carla away, the crowd begins to shift, the previous silence breaking into low conversations filled with tentative support and newfound respect. The family near the entrance resumes their hushed whispers, their eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and reflection. The security guard steps aside, his role reduced to observer as the balance of power shifts decisively. Maya's mother moves closer to her daughter, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder, their silent connection a beacon of resilience and pride. The polished floors reflect the bright light streaming through the glass doors, symbolizing a dawning awareness that justice can prevail even in places tainted by bias. Carla's retreating figure feels diminished, a reminder that authority built on discrimination is fragile and destined to collapse under scrutiny. The manager's gaze lingers on Maya before she turns to address the waiting customers, her voice calm but resolute as she reassures them of the bank's commitment to respect and fairness. Maya inhales deeply, eyes glassy but resolute, fingers smoothing the collar of her pristine blouse, shoulder bag adjusted back into place with quiet dignity. Her mother steps forward, laying a steady, commanding hand on her daughter's shoulder, the two of them turning in unison to leave the bank in charged silence. Carla's empty stare following them through the thick pane of glass, lost and defeated. The atmosphere that had been thick with tension and judgment begins to dissolve slowly, replaced by a powerful, almost tangible sense of change. Maya feels the weight of the past moments lifting off her shoulders, yet the memory of every glance, every whispered word lingers, a scar that reminds her of how far she has come and how far society still must go. She steps forward, her feet steady on the polished marble floor, no longer a hesitant girl, but a symbol of quiet strength and resilience. Her mother's hand on her shoulder is firm but gentle, a grounding presence in the swirl of emotions. The lobby around them hums softly with renewed energy as patrons begin to murmur among themselves, a ripple of realization passing through the crowd. It's not just about Maya's victory. It's about the broader message her presence and poise convey. Carla remains behind the counter, her posture slumped, eyes vacant as the truth settles around her like a heavy fog. The cold authority she wielded so mercilessly has crumbled under the weight of undeniable justice. She is left alone to confront the consequences of her actions, stripped of the power she wielded so carelessly. The bank manager watches quietly from a distance, her expression unreadable but marked by a solemn nod. She represents the institution's acknowledgement of wrongdoing and the commitment to change. The silence between Carla and Maya's mother is a conversation more profound than words. It speaks of accountability, of the necessity for systems to be held to higher standards, and for respect to be universal, not selective. Outside the glass doors, sunlight pours in, bathing the lobby in warm light that seems almost symbolic of a new dawn. Maya and her mother move toward the exit with steady, purposeful strides, their shadows stretching long behind them. The weight of the day's events has left them tired but unbroken. As they cross the threshold, the murmurs in the lobby grow into voices, soft but insistent conversations about fairness, dignity, and change. Staff members exchange glances, a collective understanding beginning to form, a promise whispered but unspoken. This will not happen again. Maya feels a quiet surge of hope. She knows this is only a step on a much longer journey, but an important one nonetheless. Her mother's words from the car ride here echo softly in her mind. You are worth every fight, every moment of discomfort. Never forget your power. Back inside, Carla stands motionless, the glow of the lobby lights reflecting off the now empty counter where the badge once lay. Her reflection in the glass is fractured, a mirror of the fracture within her own conscience. She is left to reckon with the cost of her prejudice, the price of cruelty disguised as authority. The security guard watches from the sidelines, a silent witness to the unraveling of a facade built on ignorance and fear. He lowers his gaze as Maya departs, a subtle sign of respect to the young woman who faced adversity with grace. Outside, the city moves on, unaware of the quiet battle fought in the sterile bank lobby. Yet for Maya, the victory resonates far beyond those walls. It is a testament to endurance, to the unyielding demand for respect in the face of injustice. As she steps into the sunlight, her breath steady, her heart calm, Maya knows this moment will define her, not because of the pain endured, but because of the courage to stand tall. The final image lingers, Carla's hollow gaze locked on the empty counter, a silent reminder that power misused eventually crumbles. Justice, even when quiet, always finds its voice. The end. If you found this story compelling, please consider liking and subscribing to support more content like this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of the plot resonated with you the most? Also, let me know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. Your feedback helps shape future stories.